Only 2 residences remain at Ebenezer Row, Capitol Hill's premier new construction condominiums. These spacious 2-bedroom, 2.5 baths are graciously sized to meet your needs and artfully refined to match your style, priced from $1 million. With a walk score of 97, you're just steps from Eastern Market, Barracks Row, and Navy Yard, plus 2 metro stops for seamless city access. Don't miss this rare opportunity to own in one of DC's most coveted neighborhoods. Visit EbenezerRow.com to schedule your private tour today.
Today on CityCast DC, we're talking about the federal budget and that weird billion-dollar hole it might blow in our own city budget. We're also talking about measles in the DMV. That's good times. And everything you need to know about Ovimania, which seems like a better disease. I'm here with the Washington Post's Meagan Flynn and CityCast's Julia Karen. Today is Friday, March 14th. I'm Michael Schaefer, and here's what DC's talking about. Hey, Meagan.
Hey, Mike. How's it going?
Good. Thank you for joining us from the Senate, live from the Senate.
Yes. Thanks for having me.
And hey, Julia.
Hey, Mike.
So, Meagan, you are hanging out at the Senate, not because you're that into hanging out with senators, but because it's Thursday, and even as we talk, there's politicking and strategizing and scheming going on ahead of this budget vote. The House passed the budget earlier this week. What is the state of play, or what has the state of play been going through Thursday at the Senate?
So ever since the House passed the continuing resolution without the DC fix that DC was kind of screaming from the rooftops, asking for Congress to include to avert this billion-dollar impact, the chances that it becomes fixed just became instantly less likely. And so it's really been an all hands on deck effort, not just from DC officials, but here at the Senate office buildings. There are dozens, if not, yesterday it looked like about more than 200 DC residents imploring senators to care about this DC issue, whether that's through voting against the continuing resolution as is, or voting against cloture, which is the filibuster stage, or in, doing anything they can to try to reverse it. The challenge is that, even if senators agreed to fix it in the CR, it would still have to go back through the House, where then it just becomes, because they're on recess, just another challenge.
So the conventional wisdom, or the line that the city was saying, was that the inclusion of this thing in the House budget that would basically force DC to go back to spending last year's amount of local taxes, it was sort of a mistake in the drafting, and they didn't really mean to do it in the House. Is that the assumption up there as you go around reporting on the Hill, that like the House would fix it, then it's like the recess that would be the biggest obstacle?
Honestly, it's very unclear. They intentionally took this out. Like, there's no question that they removed this longstanding DC provision intentionally. Whether they intended for these massive cuts and actually understand how DC's budget works and how it works in Congress is what's totally unclear. The explanations that Tom Cole was giving publicly at the House Rules Committee were saying, we didn't do anything to impact DC's day-to-day operations. This is just about, they don't need inauguration funding anymore and these related funds, which are federal. And so we've repeatedly tried to clarify, were you only intending to limit DC's federal funding, which really would be, very minimal impact, or are you intending to impact the city's entire local budget? And they've refused to clarify.
So I've seen some Republican senators, like Susan Collins from Maine, was like, this seems weird or wrong. Did they talk to anyone in the Senate, the Republicans, being like, hey, we're going to cut this?
No. So a lot of other House Republicans had no awareness that this was happening. Crucially, the House Oversight Committee, which has oversight of DC, say they were not cued in on this. Collins, who chairs the Senate Appropriations Committee, indicated she also had no awareness or involvement in this happening. So these are important committees that would handle DC's budget through the appropriations process or through general oversight that say they were not involved. They didn't know this was happening, which is like additionally perplexing.
So I'm curious about as we wait for the vote and whatever senators are going to do, we've had all of the D.C. elected officialdom up there on the Hill having a press conference. We've got this recess protest where they're, bringing kids in to show the impact. Our producer, Ash, was actually out there on Thursday talking to protesters. Here's what they told him.
It's LaJoy, Ward 8 State Board of Education member. I'm also a proud single mom. My daughter has disabilities, and we are here at the Capitol to tell Congress, take your hands off of D.C. schools. We do not want them to pass that resolution with that amendment for that affects D.C. It would literally shut our schools down. So if you want to sit up here and make those type of decisions, like unilateral decisions, without us and without our children, then you all need to look our children in the face and let them know why you all are doing what you're doing. So we are here at the Capitol demanding that they take their hands off of D.C. schools because there are real families and real time that this is affecting.
I'm a DC resident, and I don't have any kids, but I have a lot of neighbors and friends with kids. And so, today there's a lot of us that are here to protest and to use our voice to really talk about the challenges that would occur when there's a massive cut to the DC budget that's being proposed.
I'm Christina, and I'm from DC, and we came today just to show that we are not okay with the funding cuts of local money that are happening by members of Congress. We're hoping that they at least are being more educated about what the cuts mean to the local city, that it's not just money that they should touch, but also I think there is an element of being unsure in this climate if anything that we do and showing it matters at all anymore.
I'm curious about and that's sort of the outside game. I'm curious about the inside game. The city does have, professional on-staff comms people who lobby, people who advocate for the city. Who are those people talking to, and how effective have they been? Do they have Republican contacts who they're able to at least get a meeting with? Have they been at all effective with the House? You described this sort of ignorance or potential ignorance on the part of the House legislators. And I'm wondering whether D.C. residents are getting their money's worth with whoever is supposed to be managing this on their behalf.
Great questions, Mike. There's no question that, Susan Collins said the mayor called her personally. So certainly, our top officials are in direct communication with the people in charge of this in the Senate. Staffers who handle federal affairs, there's no question they are doing everything to try to get this to senators' attention. Here's the real issue. Whenever there's something like a government shutdown on the line, DC's woes are just never the top priority for senators. We don't have senators. And, even though our DC allies are trying to do things to raise awareness about this, Angela Alsobrooks filed an amendment to try to put back the longstanding DC language that would resolve this. But any action they take to try to fix this could jeopardize, a deal. And so negotiations are continuing, and we're going to need to watch, how those develop. But either way, it's just really hard for DC to make the city senators' top priority, even though there's this incredible impact to the city when there's a government shutdown on the line.
So if that's the case, and we're hurtling towards this government shutdown, if the Senate doesn't come up with another option, if we've got a government shutdown starting on Saturday, what does that mean for DC? How does that impact our lives generally day to day?
Sure. So, of course, all outcomes in this case are not great for the city. The thing about shutdowns, though, is that for the last, 12 or so years, the city has been exempt from the impact of a government shutdown on its city operations. So previously, more than a decade ago, whenever the government shut down, trash is not being picked up. Basic city operations would shut down because we are the federal district. But that changed after, this was under Mayor Gray's administration when he and DC Council and Eleanor Holmes Norton really pushed to change that. So while we would not, like our city operations would not shut down, there still, of course, would be an impact with federal workers, many of whom live in the city, work in the city, would be without a paycheck. So that would be, of course, the main impact. And any sort of federal related operation would shut down.
Hey, Meagan, I'm curious that if this happens, as it might, it really screws up the city's budget, which the successive city mayors have been very proud of having a balanced budget and a bulletproof bond rating and so on. There are members of the House who have explicitly said they want to end home rule. The president has mused about taking over D.C. D.C. in a weakened financial situation, presumably it is easier to take over and legislate for. Is it too conspiratorial of me to think maybe there's some people who actually want that outcome of the city kind of being on its knees financially because it eases other goals?
I mean, it's hard. It's hard for me to say what's in their heads. They've made it so unclear. But I will, there was a quote from Josh Hawley that suggested he certainly wasn't sad about what was happening to DC. This is from the publication Notice. Get a new mayor, he said, a new administration. Or maybe Congress ought to just revoke home rule.
So is that the long game here? Is that they're just like...
I don't know. I don't think anyone understands what the game is here, if it's a game, if it was intentional, if it was serious.
But nobody has said, aha, this is how we're going to do it.
Exactly. They're not explaining really anything about this other than that initially. The initial explanation that I was told from Mike Johnson's office was that the intention was to treat DC as a federal agency. That's it.
Are your ulcerative colitis symptoms proving difficult to manage? Tremfya guselkumab can help you manage the cycle of UC symptoms. At 1 year, many patients taking Tremfya achieved clinical remission, and some patients also achieved endoscopic remission. Individual results may vary. Tremfya is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with moderately to severely active ulcerative colitis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Ask your doctor if Tremfya can help you manage the cycle of UC symptoms. Call 1-800-526-7736 to learn more or visit tremfyaradio.com.
This episode is brought to you by Prime Video. In the small town of Holland, Michigan, nothing is ever what it seems. Behind the tulip festivals and pretty houses lay dark secrets that threaten to tear a marriage apart. Nicole Kidman stars in this darkly twisted thriller about a wife and mother whose quest to uncover her husband's secrets may get her more than she bargained for. Holland, streaming on Prime Video March 27th.
So let's continue our dystopian Friday. Measles
is back.
There's a big breakout in Texas. This obviously is brought into relief by the fact that the current Secretary of Health and Human Services is a prominent vaccine skeptic or opponent. And last week we learned that there was a case of measles. Apparently, somebody who was coming back to Dulles Airport en route to home in Howard County, Maryland. So, it was like Wednesday, March 5th, people who may have been at Dulles, et cetera. Unlike some of these other cases, none of the reporting or none of the press releases from government agencies say he was on, or even that it was a he, such and such a flight from such and such a origin. But we've got this sort of situation where this is going on and there's an underlying panic because of the sense that federal government is run by, the federal response would be overseen on some level by someone who has suggested that the people in Texas who got it could have more cod liver oil and take care of themselves. I will say, that backdrop was one thing. That the city, DC's, health authorities responded pretty quickly. They put out press stuff with information, what we do know about the cases, what you should do, how you should alert people, et cetera. It seems to me like, at least on a local level, the government is at least telegraphing a sense that they care about this and are on top of it. I don't know if that telegraphing is enough right now.
Yeah, I mean, from everything I've been told, and I have an aunt who works in public health, she's a professor at Johns Hopkins, like, she basically was like, yeah, if you or your loved ones or your children have had their MMR vaccine, that's measles, mumps, rubella vaccine, you're fine. Like, you don't need a booster, you don't need anything like that. But if you're worried about getting it, there are, like, chances there could be breakthrough cases because herd immunity is a thing that we all learned about during COVID. Wear a mask because it is passed through the water droplets in the air. So mask up, folks, if you're worried about measles, potentially.
And that MMR is, I think, I know, required for getting your kid in school here. And, there's a lot of things in Washington that make us different than like a frequently homeschooling Mennonite community in West Texas. But the current moment appears and feels to some people so fragile. I bet you there's a lot of people like me. I'm middle-aged. I'm safely middle-aged, and I'm like calling my mom.
I know.
And saying like, do you remember if I had one measles shot or two when I was a little kid?
Yeah, it's definitely like scary. I think one thing to know generally about DC's like kids population, I couldn't find stats for adults, but Maryland's stats are at herd immunity. They're a little bit above. DC and Virginia are a little bit low when it comes to kids. They didn't have adult populations listed anywhere that I could tell, but I imagine if the children are vaxxed, most of the adults are probably vaxxed too. So I can probably say with confidence we're at or near herd immunity. So we should be okay, at least in this community. But yeah, it is definitely a scary time.
Hey, Meagan, and you're reporting, before you had to go camp out in the Senate, but when you were just a regular City Hall reporter, is this a thing you've heard people talking about? Are they fielding calls from constituents, et cetera?
I will be totally honest with you. The only thing I've talked to council members about this week is the budget crisis. I'm just being totally honest. They might be, yeah, they very well might be, but not in my conversations personally.
Saturday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Saturday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Saturday. Saturday, bring it on.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
All right, so you guys, let's talk about a less deadly condition, Ovemania. Julia, you're a resident sports expert. Will you take it away?
As a hockey nerd, this fills my heart with so much joy. So Alexander Ovechkin, who is the Washington Capitals captain in the NHL, he is 9 goals away as of this recording from passing Wayne Gretzky for most goals all time by an NHLer. He needs 8 to tie, 9 to pass. He also could do it in fewer games than Gretzky did, which is kind of insane to me. The man we pay him $10 million a year to put pucks in the net, and he's very good at it.
So this has been like bringing big crowds downtown, bigger than usual. Am I right in that? I was around the stadium, not at a game, but I saw huge numbers of people, all in Ovi outfits.
Yeah, I mean, people are really excited about this. This is a chance to have a record held by someone who, was drafted by a DC team, stayed in DC for his entire career, didn't want to go anywhere else. And that's a huge deal. People are trying to stake out and figure out which game he's going to break it. They want him to break it during a home game. It's unclear if he will, but there's current odds and projections having him breaking the record in April. So near the end of the regular season. Per Fox Sports, Ovi is favored to break the record against the Islanders or the Blue Jackets. The Capitals play New York on April 6th and 15th, and they play Columbus on April 12th and 13th. And I know that one of the Columbus games is a home game. So it is possible that he does it in front of fans here. I have tickets to the March 30th game against the Buffalo Sabres, which is a little bit early, but I don't know, maybe he goes on a tear and I get to see it in person, and that would be sick. But yeah, tickets cost a lot of money. The NHL is saying that the tickets for this game, the one that where Ovi could break the record as we're leading up to it, could be the most expensive regular season tickets in NHL history. So it means that, like, if you look on Ticketmaster right now and you try to get tickets to any games in April in the nosebleeds in the 400s, tickets are going for resale value at like $200 a pop. So I can only imagine that, like, further down, you're looking at like $1,000 to see history. That's kind of bonkers.
Can I ask, like, what is the correct DC position? This is a very blue city. You have Wayne Gretzky, a guy who is like, everyone in Canada is mad at him because he was at Mar-a-Lago wearing a MAGA hat on election night and does not appear to have dissented while Trump is talking about taking over his country. And then you've got Ovechkin, who, in addition to his hockey wizardry, is or has in the past been pretty vocal Putin guy. So are people supposed to be cheering for this? Are they actually leaving politics out of it? He seems to still be a pretty popular figure. There was a time around the beginning of the Ukraine war when some of his stuff had blown back on him, but it doesn't seem like the case now.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch any of the local or national broadcasts, like, they mention nothing about his support for Putin or for Russia generally. But Ovi is Russian. Like, he played in the KHL. He takes his family back to their dacha in Moscow over the summers. It's a big part of his life, and he loves being Russian, and he is a big Putin supporter. I know personally, like, yes, there is some cognitive dissonance going on when you're supporting Alex Ovechkin trying to break this goal record, but then you look at his, politics and you're like, wow, I really don't like that. I imagine some people probably felt that way during the Four Nations Cup, at least, when the U.S. was playing and they got a call from President Trump and the players were hugely into that. People were booing the American national anthem because of it, because they didn't want to see these players supporting someone that they didn't like. I definitely feel weird about it because he is such a big Putin supporter. That said, there is kind of this line in my brain where I'm like, this is hockey only. This is not politics, even though kind of everything at the end of the day could be politics if you work hard enough.
Well, right. That's what I was going to say, is that the stereotype of Washington as a city of people very aware of current events. In a lot of neighborhoods, there's a lot of Ukrainian flags around. And the knock historically on D.C. has been like, you can't turn that off. So you go out to something as normal as hockey, and you're still sort of politically tribal. But in fact, it seems like those tens of thousands of people who turn out for games, who I assume reflect the politics of the area. Maybe they're a little more conservative, but they are not. They're not applying their politics to the hometown hero.
Included in this hometown hero bit is like, yes, like, his politics when it comes to supporting Vladimir Putin is a thing that people generally don't like. But he's also a DC superstar who's done incredible things for, like, the DC community writ large. Like, there was one time during an all-star game vote, he wanted to be voted in last for, like, a pick-me team because it would win him a car. It was like a Honda Accord or something. And he didn't need the car. He wanted to win the hockey car for a special hockey team, like a team in the area that needed it. And so there is kind of this dichotomy of he's really involved locally and clearly cares about his DC community as well as his Russian community in a way that kind of maybe they oppose each other.
Hey, Meagan, has this broken through the Senate news barrier?
I am so sorry, guys. I don't know.
I mean, if you need an end to, like, if you're talking to senators from Minnesota or some hockey-loving place, you could bring it up.
I could throw in, yeah. I'll add that to my list of questions today.
Put it very low on that list, I hope.
Extremely low on the list. But who knows? Maybe some of these senators, House reps are going to be at a game. Maybe you can, like, go and ask them in person and they can't actually escape,
Yeah, that'll be a good try.
Hey, Meagan, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me, guys.
And Julia, thank you for being here too.
Thanks, Mike.
And that is all for today here on CityCast DC. Our production team this week was Priyanka Tilve, Julia Karen, Ash Durbin, and Selena C.A. Reynolds. Newsletter editor Kayla Cote-Stemmerman wrote our fabulous newsletter, Hey DC, this week. And our hosts are Bridget Todd and me, Michael Schaefer from Politico. Music is by Alex Roldan. If you enjoyed the show, why not, instead of wearing an Ovechkin jersey to the next Caps game, wear a CityCast shirt. We'll be back Monday morning with more news from around the city. Bye.